Hello, everybody. Welcome to the AdSkills Pro podcast. Particularly thrilled today because this is, normally we're pretty global, but today we are super global. We're stretching from Melbourne, Australia to Spain, and we're talking to a fantastic return guest to our podcast. So we're going to catch up on what Joakim, our Hansen, has done in his agency, and we're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff that I'm sure you're going to be really fascinated to be with. Hey, Joakim, welcome. And first of all, I've got to say, very pleased to see the AdSkills certification there in pride of place on the back wall.
Thank you, Ed, and it's great to be back. Yes, of course. That has a prime space right here. It's appropriate for AdSkills.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. Appreciate that. Yeah, we'll. It's okay that the Google partner one is above us slightly. Yeah. By the way, if you're listening to the podcast and you're wondering what we're talking about Joakim's back wall. But mate, look, for those of you who didn't catch you first time around, can you tell us a little bit about your agency and who you like to work with and sort of your area of speciality?
Yeah, so my background actually comes from traditional businesses. Before I started working online, I was I was a CEO of two 8-figure companies and vice president of a 9-figure company that was completely offline. And then in 2009, although I started using online ads for my own businesses in 2004, we started with AdWords to fill up a database with workers that wanted to go abroad and work and so on. And that was that's a great thing. And then in 2009, when that financial crisis hit, the business I was in, it basically, I had to close it down. We didn't go bankrupt, but I just had to close it. Yeah. And then I said, all right, I'm going back to my marketing roots really. And I started working online full time and has been doing that since. First with our own products for me and my wife. And then in 2013, I started a marketing agency, started running and doing ads and funnels for clients, and it's called Win-Win-Win Marketing.
Very good.
Yeah. So, and over the years, it specialized pure media buying more and more and more, as I found out that was what I really liked doing and what I was really good at. So, yeah, that's my background. So I've been doing Google ads since 2004, Facebook ads since 2009. We do YouTube and Facebook and search and Google Shopping as well. So.
Yeah, there's been some interesting movement in Google Shopping recently with the model transition to free and all of those sorts of things in terms of charging for listings. So it's all very fascinating. Hey, before we go into that though, let me ask you, what do you think in your background made you particular? Because nobody started off wanting to be a media buyer, particularly if you're our vintage. We didn't grow up thinking, I want to be a media buyer. What in your background do you think made you particularly suited to media buying as a particular part of marketing?
Well, I think I started out studying mechanical engineering before I switched to marketing. And so I had that kind of analytical kind of left brain a lot in the past. I have since much more relied nowadays on intuition, because now when I started doing media buying, it was very much about really precise and you were tracking and measuring every ad, etc. And nowadays, it's no use, because it's out of your hands a lot, and you need to go with the flow, and therefore you need to more follow your intuition in a lot of situations. But what originally attracted me was this, like, you measure everything. It's like one click and what's the result of that, or $1 in and $2 out, and measuring it down to the dot. That got me started with direct response and then media buying, because I found that media buying was the best, and I still think is the best way of scaling, because you can literally turn it on and off as you go. And you're not depending on some algorithm that will tell you that, oops, we don't like you anymore, and your SEO ranking is now is now gone. Even though the Facebook algorithms change a lot, Google algorithms, search algorithms also change a lot. However, if you work on multiple ad networks, you will always be fine. That's and that's why I came into media buying, really.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. So I think when we talked to you last time, you were heavily involved in direct response businesses, and I know you worked with some of Australia's biggest marketers, and had incredibly successful like direct response businesses. But I think we were just discussing before the call. You mentioned that you found that started not to work, and you had to develop up sort of a new methodology and process, and you called it the impact method. Could you explain why you created that and what is the impact method?
Yes. Well, about 2 years ago now, we saw a shift on Facebook, especially that they didn't like this really traditional direct response. I mean, they hadn't liked sending people to a diehard VSL for some time, right? However, we used a lot of advertorials at that time. So we would have an advertorial that was compliant, bridge it over to a VSL where at that time they didn't really look at it so much, right? And however, the user experience wasn't very good, because when you have a heavily curiosity-driven ad, and it was a lot of, Michael Masterson's book, The Great Leads. Yes. He talks about different leads, and the secret lead is a big one. Yes. In financial space, and we use that a lot. With the very, this little secret could save your pension or whatever, and then people click, and there was an advertorial, and in advertorial was more curiosity. You didn't really give them what the secret was, and then there's a VSL, 48 minutes, and they would listen to it, and you still don't really know what the secret is until you buy the product, and you get the secret as a bonus, right? And and that creates not a very good user experience, frankly, right? So that style, all of a sudden we saw, was punished. The ads tired out in days, instead of we had been running for, I had an ad running for 11 months before, single ad and one image in with this style of copy, and so we saw that traditional squeeze pages started to work again at that time, which hadn't been for years been at all preferred for Facebook. So it changed a lot, so I thought, okay, how come? If you say, okay, click here to download this lead magnet, they know what they're doing. They go there, they opt in, they get the PDF in the email, then they're okay with having an offer, because they already got what they came from.
Yeah.
For right. So that triggered us. Okay, we need to change the messaging, and so the impact method is 3 parts. It's what we call impeccable messaging, where we talk much about being much more upfront and honest, so to say, about, it's more like a kind of a blog post style. It still follows all the direct response principles, YouTube, with the attention, desire, and action, and all of these things. However, it's we even tell the price. So if we say we're talking in a video ad that could be 6, 7, 8 minute long about the 3 pillars of something, and we describe one pillar, and we'll say we have a webinar or an online class where we go through all of these in details as well, so you can click and join it by clicking the link below, and we'll reveal that very early in the video. But in this video, I'm going to go through it briefly so you know what it's all about, and then at the end, when we've gone through the 3 pillars or whatever it might be in that we're going to teach in the webinar, we also say in the webinar we're also going to give you a chance to enroll in our paid class. So there will be an offer up front. So even in the ad, we talk about these things. So when people come and register for the webinar, they already know that they are going to have an offer at the end. So from the beginning, the transparency, we see that all of a sudden because we teach something, really teach something in the ad, not just some teasing.
Yeah, there's some real value in the ad, in
upfront value, really, right? Yeah. And what that does is that people then start to, because what it does with the ad is it gets the engagement that Facebook likes, and when people start to save a video ad or post, that's the highest kind of points you can get in Facebook's points book, right? So and then when they share it is the second, and they comment the third, and they like the fourth, kind of in the, I don't know exactly if it's like that, but the save is big. So when people start to save it, then that's a signal. Oh wow, they love it. People love this. Let's show it to more people. So that happens. What happens in the auction then is that Facebook will start to help you with giving that priority in the newsfeed, because the first ad you see when you log on, that's the most expensive place to be for an advertiser. And if you have all these metrics in, they will give you that space for less money, because they know that people love to see this, right? So they will give you that space for less money. So you will have cheaper ads, longer running ads, and you will see that organic reach is, and the reason is because they actually give it organic reach as well. So that's the messaging part. And then the second part in the impact methods is what we call the proliferating ad engine. Is we work on multiple ad networks, because the ad networks, they also work together today. People don't just click one ad and buy so much. They actually click one ad, look, then they might see an ad on YouTube, and they have a look, and then they make a note, and then they go to Google search, and they search, and then they see a branded search ad, they click on that, and they buy. So who is to be attributed to that sale? Facebook will say in their ads manager, yes, that's us. You saw our ad, you clicked on it. Or even if you didn't click, they will say you saw our ad, so therefore it's our sale. And in the ads manager, you will see a sale. And YouTube and Google search will do the same. So you have two or three sales, you think. In fact, it's one, right? And that comes into the last part, which we call the cross-channel tracking, which is something we started 2.5 years ago to work with. We match the real sales from the CRM with ad spend. And then you can see the real CPA and all of that. And then there are tools for it now that are really good, or even then Wicked Reports is one that we use a lot with clients. HiROS is another one, or our own dashboards that we build are just as good. It depends on because that's a little bit more tricky and needs some attention. These ready-made tools are more ready to be used, but they can cost quite a bit as well.
That investment, though, in the cross-channel tracking would have set you in really good stead when, of course, we had all the privacy /iOS/Facebook, brouhaha, shall we say, in April of 2021, right?
Yeah, that our clients that we work with never impacted at all on this, really, because we already had this tracking I just described in place. What we really had to make sure was to make sure that real data is fed back into the ad networks, right? So long time ago, we started 2.5 years ago to manually upload conversions to Google, for instance, because there were no real tools to do it automatically back then. And now with the Facebook's conversion API copy, as it's popular called, there are so many ways that they actually send it not via the pixel, but via server to server. And that, by the way, is not the solution for iOS, because they are still, if someone has opted out, they have still opted out, right? So it comes back to this first party data. You need to get the email address and name and all that thing, right?
You can see me laughing on but and for the podcast you might not have picked it up, but we were just saying before the call, Justin Brooke and I were having a laugh about first party data, because for us old timers, and Joakim's definitely in that category as well. We always thought that collecting the email, collecting the phone number, collecting the name was always vital in traffic and just doing the right thing by our clients and ourselves. So that's why I always have a bit of a chuckle about it, because the kids these days, oh, what? We need to actually get somebody's email for this stuff. It's really interesting. It reminds me of a concept that Justin talks to us about a lot, is what source has the truth. And, so when we're looking at sales, at the end of the day, the shopping cart has the truth. That's the ultimate truth. Facebook's not going to tell you. They're going to, as you said, Joakim, right? They're going to claim every sale they can.
Yeah.
Right. But you can be pretty certain that their unique views and their clicks, that's what they need to keep track of. So it sort of makes sense. So unless you're molding these things, as you say, unless you're doing, as you call it, the cross-channel tracking, you're never going to get a real insight into what's actually going on.
No, it's very true. And even so, you need to then learn and what do you do with that? Okay, so you have one click from Facebook, one from YouTube, and one from Google search, for instance, right?
Yep.
So how do you use that data? And that is the biggest trick today, right? And you can't just so the easiest way actually to do is I spent 100,000 on ads this month and I sold for 200,000. That's the most important.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. But then if it came from Facebook or Google, doesn't really matter, honestly. And in the process, as a media buyer, media buyers are often measured by individual networks, right? So you have one agency doing the Facebook, another one doing the YouTube, and a third one doing search. And they all are measured by, they have a retainer, and then they have a percent of ad spend is the classical model. So they will charge, you will pay for the same sale to 3 different agencies, right? And this is why we say that having a different agency for each network is a big myth. You don't need it. What you need is an expert for each network. And you need them to work together, because if they don't cooperate, then you need to have a compensation model then, so that they all want to do that. Because if they're purely driven by my results on one network, they are just going to look at that and scale that, and I don't care what happens on the others. We see direct correlation between how much we spend on Facebook and YouTube on how much conversions we get from Google search, for instance. It goes hand in hand, right? And the ROAS on Google search is usually 5 to 7. However, it wouldn't give us any sales unless we ran Facebook and YouTube ads, because there's no people searching for it, right? So,
and I wonder too, Joakim, the other so there's definitely like the looking at managing that ads, but the other thing, it's the first part of the impact method, right, is the creative, if you will. I think is important, because you miss out on a synergy of the creative and the consistency of a message across all those networks as well. If you're using different agencies for different things, we've been on a, as you well know, it's been a big discussion inside of Pro League at AdSkills. The whole concept of, I think omnipresent is the cool name to call it now, but I think because you have to have this cross-channel tracking, you have to have you don't have to. The best agencies that we see do have something that they're using. They're having some sort of third-party verification. At that second tier, they are marketing across. They're buying across multiple networks. But then and something that's, as you well know, is sort of passionate for me, is then the creative message. You get impact because you can tell a consistent story right across the board.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And this is what we also see, that usually otherwise, as you say, you will have one YouTube agency coming up with one story for the YouTube ads, and then another one, you have a different one on Facebook, and there's no recognition in between, and people do see these ads across networks, right? So it's extremely important to have a consistent messaging, and also yeah, the whole creative needs to have people need to recognize it.
Yeah. So are you with win-win-win? Are you doing creative? Like, are you coming up with the creative? Are you working with the client? Where do you sort of, for the impact method to work, how does that tend to work with your clients?
Well, I have full-time copywriters, and I so we don't only have media buyers, we have copywriters, because that is as important as the media buying, you know. And
I agree.
yeah, I know you would agree. But I mean, media buying, you cannot media buy with your way to success with a crappy offer, right? You need to have a good offer, and if the good offer also have good copy, the media buying is much easier, right?
Yeah,
that's just how it is. And you can have really poorly media buying if you have a great offer and great copy and still get good results, right? So that's the why we do that. So we and in many cases the clients have their own copywriters in-house, or that they work with good ones, then we cooperate. If they don't, then we have that, so we create the copy for them, right? So
yes, yeah,
that's how we do it.
yeah. And tell us, in terms of the type of companies and so on that you like, that you're working with today and that you would like to work with, tell us a bit about who what sort of companies, in whether it's industries or particular niche or so on. Tell us a little bit about who you really enjoy working with in 2021.
Yeah, so what we have been doing a lot, it's two different, it's completely different things, way of working with, really. One is webinar call funnels that leads to a high ticket sale. I've done a lot of that over the years, and it still works. It still works really, really well, and that can be in many, many different niches and markets. So that's why I'm not saying it's a specific market. We've done it in financials, real estate investing.
Yeah, people are using that webinar call, high ticket item sale.
Yeah,
goes across a lot of industries: coaching, finance.
Yeah. Works fantastic on YouTube. Works fantastic on Facebook, and so that's what we do a lot. And there, the tracking is extremely important, because you would see that the sale can come in months and months after the first interaction with the first ad, and they watch the webinar. So you need to follow up for months and months with them, and often see that more than 50% of sales comes after long after the first month is gone, really. So that is often, if clients don't have that tracking and see it with their own eyes, it's difficult to grasp, honestly, right?
Yeah.
So that's when tools like wiki reports and Hyros is essential. And the other part that we work a lot with is supplements, e-commerce health supplements, which is a completely different way of running media buying, really, but that's what we do a lot. And what we have seen a big shift over the last year, actually, what we're doing a lot is that we help e-commerce businesses especially bring the media buying in-house, and continue to work with them as consultants and mentors to their media buyers.
Interesting.
Yeah, because in reality, it's like this: if you're a media buyer in an agency, you handle 5 accounts, sometimes more. So when someone starts to spend a lot of money, so this doesn't apply if you spend, I would say, below 100,000 a month. But if you spend more, 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure e-com businesses, it makes a lot of sense to have it in-house, because when you start to add up, first of all, one media buyer full-time in-house is 100% yours, while if he's in an agency, he's 20% yours, because he handles 4 other accounts. And with agency fees and markups, you will pay less for a full-time media buyer than you will for the agency fee at that level. agency, I'm not saying agency doesn't deliver value there, because they do, because with the agency you get all the insights across multiple clients that is applied on all your clients, right? So that here what we found is that when we help e-com businesses especially bring it in-house, and we train the media buyers, and then we work, not just train them, we work with them. So we have weekly calls, review and discuss all their ads. We can bring what we do and see in other clients to them, so they keep the benefits of working with an agency while having it in-house. And as a result, we often see that they can double their sales just by doing this. Because it's no way an agency can give the same attention as you can if you're 100% working in-house, right? So
what I love about this approach, though, is it's like jujitsu. It's sort of, you turn, like, because it's the age-old thing, right? And often it's not the marketing department that drives it. It's often the CFOs, right, who are going, hang on, why are we paying all this money here when we could have somebody in-house? And so one way, one methodology is to look at pay for performance style models, but another one, which is what you're doing, right? Which is, hey, if you can't beat them, join them and consult with them to help set up their internal department. And because what's the negative? The big negative of setting up an internal department is, the big positive, of course, is, focus, is that they're fully focused on the product. The big negative, however, though, is that they're fully focused on the product. So they don't necessarily see what the changes are going on in the ad network marketplace and so on. So by offering your services as a consultant into those in-house teams, that's a fascinating model.
Exactly. And that's why we see such great results for the clients with it. And it's part, I am a strong believer that the name of the company is win-win-win.
Yes.
And, it has to be a win for me, it has to be a win for the client, and it has to be a win for their clients.
Yeah.
And if I see I can deliver a bigger win for my client by helping them with this, that's a natural path. I'm naturally abundant. There's no scarcity. There's not, I rather bake another pie than just to slice up the pieces of the one in front of me. And that's how we do it kind of with this, right? So we make them their own pie. And,
media buying is not going to run out of clients anytime soon. It's particularly with the last couple of years that we've had. There's a reason it's top 5 with a bullet, biggest career and business growth in the United States alone, let alone the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Hey, Joakim, we could speak forever, but we're almost out of time here. I just wanted, if people want to reach out, if they're either looking at going in-house and looking for somebody to help them with that, or they're doing that, supplements or webinar style calls, which is a lot of people, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, the company website is winmarketing.eu. Win Europe, so it's like EU, European Union. We work worldwide, though. Most of our clients are in the US and Australia, and but we also work in Europe. We work in multiple languages as well. Here, I'm Swedish, and we work in German and Polish, Swedish, and so on. So winmarketing.eu.
Right.
That's the best way to get in touch.
And as always, if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, in the description below, Joakim's, all of his contact details and Win Marketing's contact details will be under the description. And of course, if you're listening in the podcast, bless you, my favorite way of listening, then just depending on your podcast player, swipe left or right, and you'll get the show notes, and there'll be a handy little click button so you can go straight to the website or straight to email contact details. Hey, Joakim, thank you so much. Hopefully we can get you on again and make it a third time lucky. I'd love to talk to you actually about languages and working with other languages would be a really interesting thing. But we could, as I say, we could talk to Eva, and hopefully one day we'll be able to go to Trevor Crook's marketing webinar where we're both meant to be presenting, but it's been put off for the last 2 years. But
yeah, exactly.
We'll meet in person.
Yeah, let's hope we can do that.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Thank you so much
All
for
right.
taking the time with the AdSkills audience today. Really appreciate it. And fascinating conversation. Lots of food
Yes.
for thought. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Ed. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Speak soon.